All right, here we go.
Hey, welcome to Life After Addiction Indictment. Today, I've got a great guest, a gentleman by the name of Russ Ward that goes by the Lead King. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how he got that name, where he's his journey's taken him through entrepreneurship, struggles, things that he had faced, and, how he came up on the winning end again. He's not a quitter. He's obviously motivated. He's inspirational, and his main motivation is really just get out, share his story, and make a difference to help other people who are fighting, through life, this difficult journey that we all face. Doesn't matter who we are, what backgrounds we have. At some point, we're all going to face, something that really sets us back and challenges us. So welcome to the show, Russ. I appreciate your time. I know you're incredibly busy. I appreciate you fitting this in your schedule.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. Any opportunity I have to get on somebody's platform and share my story and, just even to reach one person and inspire somebody that, hey, if stuff sucks for you right now, it can stop sucking and your life can turn around if you just implement a few things.
Amen. It's like, I know a little bit about your story, obviously, and we both faced our challenges and most likely we'll face some more. That's just kind of how life works, but it's really how we look at them and how we deal with it when we're, in them. And that's really what inspired me about you is, you just weren't willing to give up and you knew what you wanted. You were determined to get there, even when it really sucked.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone through a lot of really tough times in life, and me saying I've gone through tough times isn't to downplay anybody else's. I've know in relation to other people, I've probably been greatly blessed. But, I grew up as a child without a dad. My dad left when I was a little kid. All I had was my grandfather, and he couldn't be around as much because he had to work all the time. And I had a mom that was just, she was a kid having kids, and she couldn't be the best mom in the world because she didn't even know how to be a mom.
Yeah.
So I was the oldest child, and I had to literally learn how to raise myself and, try to take care of my siblings. I had 3 siblings, all while just, trying to figure it out in the world. And that caused a lot of stuff in me, man, that came up later in life that I didn't even know was inside me. Stuff that, abandonment issues, feelings about my mother that I projected onto other people. And I'll get into that and why that was so terrible. And it just goes to show that, no matter where we start, we all have problems. Every one of us has a problem from our childhood, and you have to deal with it. There's no weakness in dealing with it. And if you don't deal with it, you're going to keep repeating patterns that are going to teach you lessons until you learn those lessons. And I just went through that again recently, and I'm happy to share it, even though it's not the most inspiring thing in the world to me. I have to keep learning the same lessons until I learn them,
Right. Well, I think that's what's so valuable is, and, what really made me want to get you on the podcast is because, my experience has shown me those of us that are willing to be open and vulnerable and honest about the shit we've been through, that's really what helps people in ways that otherwise nobody can reach. When we're going through our own stuff, our own trials, we feel so alone, and we oftentimes will feel like no one else has dealt with this or no one else has been through this. But when you hear about somebody else, it's like instantly, things change. It doesn't solve everything, but I mean, it just makes you feel like, man, I'm not alone. I'm not the first person that's dealt with something like this. And, it just goes to show that, people are looking for that. They're looking for that authenticity, that honesty. And I could tell when we talked last week that you're that kind of guy. And so like I said earlier, I appreciate you being here and appreciate your willingness to just be open, be honest and vulnerable, sharing things from your heart and, just be willing to put it out there. Cause a lot of people aren't comfortable doing that. I'm one that is like you. I don't know why that is, but I don't care. It's just, I just have felt every time that I do that. And I know you feel the same, as that's when we can reach people that otherwise aren't reached. So thanks again.
Yeah. And, I wasn't always comfortable like this. I've been greatly humbled by life. I've been greatly blessed. And when you get humbled in life, sometimes it takes a few times. And now I'm to the point where I'm willing to share anything with anybody, because even though I'm not proud of my past, I'm not completely ashamed of it anymore. I've asked for forgiveness. I've made amends to people. I've asked for forgiveness from God, so many times. And, every time I share my story with somebody, whether it's a Facebook video, a YouTube video, or I just talk to somebody hears it and says, hey man, I'm going through some shit right now. And that really just helped to hear that you went through that and you overcame it. And it usually ends up in a nice conversation, and I'm able to help in some way and say, listen, I was able to get through that. And, just to give you a little background of how I screwed up my whole life. Right. So
let's go.
It's whack. It's ridiculous. But you know what? I'm sure it's much more common than people know, because not everybody shares the low light reel. We all share the highlight reel. Right. So I knocked up my girlfriend when I was 19 years old. I was terrified that my son wouldn't have a father. So I flew on an airplane for the first time to Vegas. We got married. We didn't even like each other, yet we stayed married together for 10 years. We had another kid, one trip to Disney, and we had another kid. So we ended up having 2 kids together, didn't like each other, but I was in the Navy, and my life was chaotic. I was a hothead. I had a lot of emotional problems. I had a lot of stuff I just didn't deal with. And to be honest with you, maybe my wife would have liked me better, and maybe I would have liked her better if I was a better person, but I wasn't.
But in fairness, you probably didn't truly know that was, at that stage of your life, you didn't know that was probably happening. You didn't know that there was something deep underlying, because I don't think most of us do. Everybody, I believe, has something.
I had no idea. I was just an emotional wreck who was reacting to life. And I honestly, I was trying to do the best I could. I purposely joined the Navy because I knew it was a job I couldn't quit, and I would provide for my child. That was why I did it. And I had a distinguished Navy career. I was on one of the first ships after 9/11. I helped get strike packages ready for the Taliban. Like I did some really cool stuff that I'm very proud of. I deployed with a SEAL team. I got a commendation for helping save a life. Like that was one of the most important things I've ever done in my life. And I'm very proud of that time.
I appreciate your service, brother. That's something that,
and believe me, I'm not
appreciated too much,
but even despite I had all those problems, I was still able to do a very good career in the Navy while still trying to be a good father to my kids. And I was an emotional wreck. So after 8 years in the Navy, one time I almost got blown up. I was like, that's it. My daughter's won. I'm out. My contract's up. And I moved back to Pennsylvania, where I was from. And I didn't know what to do, because they weren't hiring for intelligence analysts in Pittsburgh, PA. I had a top secret security clearance. The only thing I could really do was work for the FBI. And I didn't really want to be in law enforcement. So I ended up getting an MBA, and I went and applied with Google a couple of times, with US Steel. And every time they gave me a personality assessment and said, we don't want to hire you because you're too entrepreneurial and you'll try to leave here and take some of our secrets and start your own. So I couldn't get a job. And it was, I was going nuts. So I ended up getting into sales, due to what people called my pleasing personality. I don't know if everyone would agree, but, and I failed at about my first 15 sales jobs. I was just absolute failure. So what did I do? I did something, insanely stupid. I actually got copies of every NFL Super Bowl ever made. I made a website called superbowlsondvd.com, and I started bootlegging NFL Super Bowls, and I started making a great amount of money. I mean, it was insane, until the NFL found out and sued me for $10 million. Oh, and then the IRS found out and slapped a tax lien on me for $119,000. And along the way, I got divorced from that wife that I didn't like, and she didn't like me. I married somebody else, and she and I, we had a child together, and she's amazing. And she and I get together we get along very well today. She's a very good friend. I'm a good friend of hers. We help each other. But we just didn't do well at all being married. So that was another failed relationship, another failed divorce. And I kept getting these things in my head that, Russ, every time you do something, you fail. You fail at
That's
everything.
Crazy message to start listening to. Yeah.
And even though my Navy career was good, I failed in the Navy sometimes too, because I had a hot temper. So I would sometimes spout off to my superiors, and I lost a rank. So I left the Navy thinking, you failed at the Navy. Even though I did all this awesome stuff in the Navy, I left feeling like a failure. I failed at sales jobs. I failed at bootlegging DVDs. I failed at multiple businesses. When I was 18 in college, I started a painting business, and I got sued by 6 people because my painters did ridiculous stuff, drank beer at their house. I mean, everything I had done in life, I had branded myself as a failure. So by the time I got to my late 30s, I was convinced that I just failed at everything I did. And that was just who I was at that point. I was just a failure who was trying to get through this life to the finish line of death without hurting myself or others too bad.
Real quick, I don't want to interrupt, but that's so powerful, because I think for some reason, it seems to be human nature that we do focus on the negative, and, one of the things that I think is really important, that each day we try to focus on, in the evening, I still do this, even if it's something very small, focus on the wins, because for some reason it's very easy to just focus on the negative side. And I'm sure there's no doubt about it, you were not consciously really doing that to get to the point where it probably started to be there, but that was just happening. And the next thing you know, you're buying into that, and that story creates itself over and over, and you keep telling that same thing over and over in our minds. Next thing you know, we keep bringing that into our lives.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was doing. But at one point along the way, I became conscious of the story, because there was a point where I noticed a pattern that I was wrecking relationships I was in, not just romantic relationships, but interpersonal relationships with friends and family members. And so I went to a therapist at the VA, and I said to her, to the lady, I said, can you guys just do a battery of tests on me? Find out what's wrong with me. Find out, am I bipolar? Am I anything? And then let's treat me and let's fix me. Like she said, you're the first person that ever came here and said, please diagnose
powerful, me. Man. Yeah.
And so they said, we can't find anything to diagnose you with. You have some problems, and we'll love to treat you and help you out. So my very first day of therapy, I show up with this list of failures. And I said to the therapist, I said, look, here's a pattern. I think I'm the only guy in the world that this applies to, but I fail at every single thing I do. And can you help me with this too? And she was just like, shake her head. She bundled up and threw it in the trash. She goes, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop that. And so 3 years of intensive therapy was really helpful with a therapist that really cared about me. I know the VA gets a bad rap sometimes for the way they treat veterans, but they treated me with the utmost respect and care. And I'll tell you what, if I didn't go through that VA experience with a therapist, I would have killed myself at some point. So I have to give it up to them. They were so
great
helpful
to hear that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, I went to the VA and I started getting help for that. But I mean, it ultimately culminated that I ended up with my house in foreclosure. I couldn't get a job, $119,000 tax lien, $10 million lawsuit, 2 divorces. And I was so beat down mentally and emotionally from myself. And by the way, I'm not a victim in any of this. Every single one of these things that I'm talking about was self-created. Nobody did these things to me. I did them all. And that's another thing that I need to tell everybody is, if you're in a situation that sucks, if it's your fault, and I don't care if somebody did it to you, I don't care if somebody else really is responsible, something along the way led you to the position to get there. And I know that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, but once you take
truth, brother, I appreciate
accountability to your actions that led you to where you are, that's the only time you can become free. I realized that if I took full responsibility for all my actions every single time, that I could fix those actions. If I blame somebody else, I can't fix that. I can't control you. I can't make you stop suppressing me, but I can stop suppressing myself. So I finally got to that point.
Right there, yep.
Yeah, man. And I got to that point, and it really felt to me that one day I was out and I borrowed some money from somebody to go and buy a suit. And I was out walking around town with a handful of resumes. And I got so desperate, man. I went to Walmart and I went to the store manager with tears in my eyes. Wow. And I said, listen, man, I got an MBA. Can you just make me a manager just so I can have a job, so I could do something with my life? And he looked at me and said, what the hell are you doing here? And I was, and it gets worse that day. So that day I had no food left. I had no money. I went down to the welfare office where they give you food stamps, dressed up in my suit. And these people looked at me like, get the hell out of here. Right. Wow. They would not give me, I had paid my taxes. I had served my country, and I couldn't get $50 worth of food. So I went with crying to my local state representative. And I said, listen, here's my story. Can you please get me some food stamps? I need to feed myself. I need to feed my kids when they're with me. And he went down there and they helped me out. And that was one of the most humiliating days of my life, because I had to, tuck my tail between my legs and go beg for food.
Yeah.
And the problem was, though, is I was doing everything they told you to do. I was working hard. I was putting my resume out. I was trying new things, and it wasn't moving the needle one bit. And that's how I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. If everything I'm going to do is going to lead to more misery, what is the point? And that's how I went down a slippery slope where I eventually just wanted to die.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Wow. I mean, that took a lot of humility to do what you did. But, that shows me that, with everything that you had going against you, you were just in there fighting. You like you said, you could have given up, and had you given up, we wouldn't be here. You probably would have killed yourself.
I would have been dead. And so that ultimately culminated in November of 2017. I was laying on the floor with a gun to my head, loaded trigger. It was, and as weirdness would have it, it was my grandfather's gun. And so if I would have blown my head off, I would have killed myself with my grandfather's gun. And I was sitting there playing with the revolver, saying, I wonder if I should play Russian roulette. And the only thing that stopped me was the image of my head splattered against the wall and my kids finding my body and that scar that would have caused them. So somehow, some way, I pulled myself up. I started doing a Google search for reasons to want to live.
Wow.
I came up with some things. I came up with, I'll tell you what, something, and a lot of people like him, a lot of people don't like him, but Joel Osteen was one of the people that helped me. I just found positive messages from this guy, Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
And he just kept on saying, keep on staying in faith. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. I found law of attraction. I found meditation. I found vibrational frequencies. I found manifestation. And I started doing this stuff because I said, you know what, if I'm not going to kill myself, I have to figure this out, because I cannot suffer like this, because I don't know what it'll do. I don't know what will happen. So I started doing all these things. I started throwing all this shit against the wall to see what would stick. I was selling flooring. I was doing really well at it too. I had a real estate license. And one thing that stuck was I bought some of the last money I had left, a course on lead generation for real estate leads, because I was first going to try to get myself some real estate leads and sell some real estate. Then I just set it up for one person who told another person, told another person. And within 62 days of starting that, I had made my first $10,000 and I was on my way.
That's awesome.
At the time, I was freelance guy, Russ Ward. 62 days in, I became the lead king, Russ Ward, just to give myself a little branding. And that's where everything really took off. And along the way, I had continued with the meditations. I had continued with law of attraction. I had continued praying. I was back in church. I was giving thanks daily. And my life was truly turning around. It really was.
That's phenomenal. I mean, so you shift what you're focused on. You focused on doing some of that inside work, you focused on that meditation, that manifestation, which is thinking about the things that you do want rather than focusing on the things that you don't have happening. And all of a sudden, stars started to align.
Exactly. So the whole year of 2018 was great. The stars started aligning. My business was growing. I mean, for the first time in my life, I was making legit good money, and I was doing it in a way that was ethical, and I was proud of it, and I was helping a lot of people. Somewhere along the way, I decided I wanted to get up out of there. My house was about to get taken in foreclosure. My older kids were getting ready to go to college, and I just wanted to get out of that city where I had so many bad memories. So I decided to move to Florida. And so I moved to Florida, and when I got to Florida, that's when, things started to pick up even more. I started to build the business more. I had some friends here in Florida, and that's when I got really deep into meditation. There's a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza.
He's phenomenal.
Check him out.
His story is phenomenal.
Yeah. What I learned from Dr. Joe is a kind of meditation that I can't even describe. Like I would sit in this meditation, and what you do is you envision yourself already having the life or the thing that you want, and you don't get out of the meditation until you feel like you already have it. So I did that.
Keyword, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've gone deeper than me, but I mean, for the listeners, that if you don't know Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, you need to at least go listen to his story, because the power of the mind and the meditation to get there, his story will blow you away. But I think the key word I wanted to point out, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, is the quote law of attraction or meditation or whatever, or a vision board. All those things are great, but if you don't feel it, it's really not going to work the way it does if you truly get yourself into a space where you feel the way you would
exactly
if you were where you wanted to be. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And that's what he teaches. He says the thought creates the emotion, and then the emotion creates what really happens. So literally what you're doing when you're doing these type of meditations is you are having future memories. And I know that sounds like a weird concept, but you believe it so solidly that as you're in that moment, and when you come out of the meditation, you do actually feel like it. So just to give you a couple examples, there was I rented a car the first time I came to Florida. It was a black convertible Mustang. It was awesome. I loved driving down the coast with it. And I thought to myself, I'd love to have a car like this. And I just kind of put that out into the universe and just let it marinate out there. And as I was recovering from bankruptcy, I got a letter in the mail one time that said I was eligible for a car loan. And I looked at the website and I looked at the cars available, and that exact car was available. Wow. I went to the place, no money down, drove right off the lot, didn't even ask for income verification. I drove off the lot with that very car. And that was a direct realization of law. That's a tangible thing. Now, I'm not saying that it's all about physical, tangible things and money. Like I've manifested other things too. Like I've legitimately sat down and thought, I want this situation to change. I want this person's situation to change. And that has happened as well. And even my shoulder. So I tore my rotator cuff when I was lifting weights one time. And it was, I could tell it was torn because I could barely lift it above shoulder level. And I did a Dr. Joe meditation where he talks about healing your body. And I just kept on meditating on that. And I could actually, and I know that this is going to sound ridiculous to a lot of people.
Doesn't to me at all, because I
felt an energy in this shoulder, like, but bam. And as soon as I felt it, I could raise my arm above my head again and it was healed. And, you know, believe it or don't believe it, it happened in real life to me. So I knew that Dr. Joe was legit because when I copied what he taught me to do, and I never met Dr. Joe, I just watched his videos just like everybody else does. And I read his book. It's called Becoming Supernatural, by the way. And if you can read that book, that will, and you have to implement it though. It's the key. And like you said, you have to get into a state where you feel like this is real. And Dr. Joe talks about how he'll get up at 4 a.m. and he will wrestle with his subconscious mind and he will force himself to feel like that. And he won't get out of the meditation until he feels that way. That's how he's accomplished everything he's ever accomplished. So everything was going great. Life was chugging along and I decided, and this is where the story gets sad again. And this is my most recent, destruction of my life. And this is very personal and this is very recent and this is very raw and it's very emotional to me, but I wanted a partner to share this with. I wanted somebody that was like me. I wanted somebody on the same vibrational frequency, somebody that thought like me. And so I found that person. I actually did these meditations where I would envision exactly what I wanted. And I saw a woman in the meditation and I met this woman in real life. And as soon as the day I met her, I said, I'm going to marry you. And she goes, I know.
Wow.
So a couple of days later, I bought her an engagement ring. Within 20 days, I was on a helicopter over the Grand Canyon, proposing to her. On the 90th day we knew each other, we were married. And this all sounds well and good. It was literally like a scene out of the movie, the Notebook, and I know all the guys are like, that's stupid. I'm not watching that. Well, when it happens to you in real life, bro, you'll appreciate it. So that happened. And unfortunately, and this is where it gets sad. And this is where I want to share some stuff with people because people need to know this. It was the most beautiful time of my life. It was 1 month of my life that was the most beautiful. I loved this woman passionately. She loved me passionately. We had dreams of dominating the world together and nothing was going to stop that. And we didn't take much time to get to know each other. We went mostly with the feeling and the emotion. Yeah. And we started this beautiful new life together. Moved into this house that to me was a mansion because, I was making good money. She was making good money. We're like, well, let's do it. And we lived in this beautiful island by the water. And as soon as we moved in together, it got weird. And that beautiful relationship took a turn for the worse. And as time went on, I started to realize that probably 80% of the reason for that was me. So once again, I had to take a self-inventory on this and say, why did this shit go bad? And the truth of the reason why it went bad was because something happened when we moved into that house that triggered a memory from me when I was a child. And I went to a hypnotherapist to figure this out. And I started projecting my hatred of my mother on her. She was a great mother to her children. And she was, and so I started being jealous of her being a great mother to her children and my mother not being a great mother to me.
Gotcha.
And we would fight and we would go through these cycles where we would be amazing and then would fight and amazing and fight. And, looking back on the pattern and therapy I went through, I was causing those patterns. So not even 8 months into it, she's like, I can't do this anymore. She filed for divorce and we got divorced, which it went from the most beautiful relationship you could ever imagine. Like if you could think of the most romantic, beautiful relationship you could ever imagine, that's what we had. And it went from that to we're divorced now. And so I was devastated, man. I had to go
mentally. Yeah. What did that do to your business?
My business tanked.
Your life.
I in the process, I stopped working for the most part. I lost 50 grand over that amount of time. And it was mostly because I had to pay bills that were still coming in and I didn't have much income coming in because I was focused on fighting and not working, and I was causing drama and chaos. And she has a little bit of blame because she didn't have to, fight back and fan the fires. But I'm telling you, if I would have got the help I needed for that, that wouldn't have happened. However, here's the key. And this is what I want to share with people. I didn't know I needed that help. I came into it thinking I was the best version of myself I had ever been. And as soon as that started happening, I didn't know what was again. So I had to go back. I had to deal with it. And life is just a repetitive pattern of learning what's messed up in you and fixing what's messed up and dealing with it. So, I I still think of her every day. I still passionately love
Oh,
her.
yeah, yeah.
I still have hopes of, someday maybe a reconciliation, but she needs a lot of time to heal,
Oh, I bet,
and
yeah.
I got to leave her alone, and
Yeah, and that's hard, but yeah, I understand.
yeah. So what happened again? I ended up crashed out on, I had to leave the house. I ended up crashed on an air mattress in a friend's house. And I was just laying there crying for days, just crying and crying. And I was like, life's never going to recover. Life's never going to recover. And, at some point I had to once again pull myself up. So what I'm trying to teach people here through sharing this is that even when you think you got it all right, just
Yeah.
you don't always. Like, there's always going to be another curveball. Like, I never expected to be in that situation again. Get there, I was, my life flat out nuked one more time, right? And I had to start over and recover from that. And I'm not even that far out of it. I'm like
Yeah.
almost 2 months into this process of this recovery.
That's
But
crazy.
I just want to thank God though, because every time I've had these things happen to me, I've landed on my feet better. In the process, I bought a beautiful townhouse that, and my credit recovered to the point where I was able to do that. It's a couple of streets away from my daughter's mom, so she can ride her bike back and forth
Oh,
between
that's
us.
great.
I had another business opportunity come up that is something I'm starting. Like, life is once again freaking amazing. And it all was because once that failure happened and once the grieving had to kind of stop, I went back into self fix mode, right? So I started all this process of more therapy, more hypnosis. I got into a men's coaching group. I got back to church. I got into learning new things. And all I did was started working on myself again. And the key is that while I was going through that bad time with her, I wasn't working on myself anymore. I was focused on why I don't like you, right? And I didn't even realize that. I didn't realize that I was focused on that. I just felt that feeling. Yep. So, the key to this is that we always have to be self-improving, because if we're not, we're just going to be screwed like that. And another thing that happened too is every single time that I went away from God, every single time I went away from God, my life collapsed like you wouldn't believe. And I always believe that these collapses in life, and this is just me, and I don't know what your religion is.
Don't preach it, brother.
It doesn't really matter.
Hey, man, forget religion. It's all about a connection with God. It's all, that's what it's all about.
I believe God has a purpose for me. And
Amen.
Every time I get too far away, he's going to pull me back in somehow. And if that means he has to take away someone that I love from me, even if it's just temporarily, he's going to do that. And so I went back to church, tail between my legs, tears in my eyes, saying, God, I'm a prodigal son, take me back one more time. And, as soon as I did that, life started turning around. A guy came up to me at church and he said, I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am, but I have a word for you. And I know your life's all messed up right now. And I know that you have a lot of questions and I don't have any answers, but it's going to be okay. And that was my message, that I'm in the right path. Yep. So here I am again, and you can see my energy's up and I'm doing well, but I'm still grieving. I'm still terribly sorry for that. I wish I could make it up to her. I wish I could make it up to us. And in this very moment, there's not really much I can do other than work on myself and build a better life, Yeah. So that's kind of my story. And what I'm trying to hope is that people hear it and say, this dude trashed his life multiple times, and look at him. He's still sitting there. He's still coming at us, right? And that can be you too. If you're curled up in a ball and you're crying and you're listening to this, if you had a breakup, if you lost everything, if you have an addiction, you can get through any of this stuff. There's resources to you. There's guys like me. There's guys like you. There's groups. There's church. And if anything else, just cry out to God and he will help you. Cry out to God in your worst times.
Yeah, that's the most powerful thing that I've experienced. Sounds like you. And what you just said, I can emphasize is, and I believe, not to get off topic, but I believe we are going through what we are in this world right now because we got away from God. And, no matter what your religion is, to me, that doesn't matter. It matters. It doesn't even matter if your God is Allah or if it's Source, whatever you believe, that's where you can always go. And like you just said, Russ, reach out to someone like you or me or get in groups. The thing that I've heard over and over while we've been talking is you always were willing to look at yourself. You're always willing to look inside. And too often people aren't willing to do that, whether it's pride, whether it's not even knowing, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But, early on, you talked about everything you have in your life. you created. One of the best books I've ever read is called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. And everything we have is a direct result of actions or choices we've made. And
Right.
as you've done, once we own that and focus that being the case, everything can change. Between that, asking for help, getting rid of the pride. Much of my life, I struggled with that. I mean, whether it was even, pride or embarrassment. I was the guy in school. I hated school, even high school, I'm the guy, I'm never asking questions because I'm too cool to look stupid, right? Or whatever the reasons and things like that. But that is one of the most powerful things. And as I've listened to you, you were willing to always ask, you were willing to always look, and too often we stay trapped in our struggle because we sit in that victim role and aren't willing to reach out. And I think that's where, as we talked in the very beginning, where being authentic, being honest, that opens a door for someone that maybe is listening to become willing to reach out, because all of a sudden they hear somebody that they can relate to and they feel safer, reaching out to somebody.
Yep.
And so, man, thanks for just being so real and raw. I mean,
And
that's powerful.
I agree with you on that. Like I said, every time I tell this story or any story related to struggles I've had, somebody does reach out. And I feel like we're going through a shift in the world right now, because every time I've reached out to somebody, I've been welcomed with open arms. I've never had anybody reject me, laugh at me, kick me when I'm down. And maybe I'm just fortunate to have a good network of people, but I don't think so. I think that humans are inherently good. And I think that if you ask another human for help, they're going to try and help you, So
Amen.
My message out to the world is, if you need help in any way, man, I don't care what it is, ask for it, because you cannot do this journey alone. I can't do it alone. You can't do it alone, and we're willing to help you. There's help out there for you.
Yeah. We're built, I believe, to be social, to connect, to, work together. We're much more powerful together than we are individually, and so, yeah. I mean, that's what gives me the most satisfaction over any amount of money, over any accomplishment, over anything that I've done in my life, is truly just helping somebody. I mean, you cannot be depressed. You can't be angry. You can't be sad. You can't be anything when you're focused on somebody else. And, that gratitude for what we do have, I think gratitude is a key to unlocking, that the prison that somebody might be in.
Yep, absolutely.
Not physical prison, but just life, So, well, man, Russ, I appreciate everything you shared. Where can people, find you, connect with you?
So, something that I'm working on, and it's been a passion of mine for a long time, I just haven't really focused forward on, is I want to start speaking about this. I've noticed that when I speak, sometimes people listen, and sometimes it helps. So I'm going to start speaking about this message and about some other messages. And I'm starting a podcast called Real Talk with Russ Ward. It's actually endorsed by Magic Johnson of the LA Lakers.
Listen to that. That's powerful.
And I have a Facebook group for it called Real Talk with Russ Ward. And I have a YouTube channel. I haven't started the podcast yet because I want to get a lineup of people. Maybe you can be on my podcast when I get the lineup out.
I'd be happy to. I'd love to.
That'd be great. What it's designed to do is it's designed to let people tell stories like I just told, in a safe way, where no one's going to laugh at you. No one's going to kick you when you're down. We're going to say, we're here for you, brother. And it's mostly designed for men. I'm not going to ever turn anybody away, but men traditionally have not had a voice to say, hey, I'm hurting and I need help. And that's why, in my opinion, I don't know this to be true, the vast majority of suicides are men, because we just hold this stuff in and let it eat us up. Like I was telling you, like I said, I would have rather just died than felt that way forever. And I think
that's weak, I think, and it's not weak at all. I'm a pretty emotional dude. And as I've gotten older, it's come a lot easier for whatever reasons. At first I kind of felt a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't even care, because if that's how I'm feeling, then, oh, well, Right. And it's not weak. And for those men listening, you got to get over that story, because that story is damage. That'll make things so much more difficult, because if we can speak about something and talk about it and share with someone, even if it's just to let it out, it can really, free you a lot from what you're dealing with.
Yep, absolutely. And just having a guy like you or a guy like me, just to shoot it back and forth with, just to say, I don't know what to do for you, brother, but I understand. that is so powerful, man, just to have somebody to hear you so you don't have to hold this all in. Because the heaviest weight you're ever going to feel is when you hold the weight of everything you're going through by yourself and you don't let any of it out. And that was really what led to the point where I wanted to die. I just had it all in here and I didn't feel there was anybody who could help me or who wanted to. And you know, guys, we're here to tell you that we want to help, you know, and there's a lot more of us out there than you think.
I'll say. Well, you know, back to, you know, what this podcast is truly about is, you know, how to take control of your life through entrepreneurship, regardless of what trial, whatever you faced. And you're the perfect example of someone who had all the qualifications, all the abilities to have a job, you know, and you kept getting turned away. And then boom, all of a sudden you find yourself, you know, building your own business that truly allowed you to reach some of the goals that you had. And you're, in my opinion, you had great success, but you know, you're just getting started, you know. I mean,
appreciate
you've got
that.
so much to offer, man. I mean, I just, like I said, I appreciate your story. And so, yeah, so where can people connect with you and
Yep. So
reach
yeah,
out?
just look for me at Real Talk with Russ Ward on YouTube and Facebook. Be my Facebook friend. I'm just Russ Ward. You'll recognize my face. And if you want to find out what I do for a living, it's theleadking.com. I do lead generation and digital marketing for different kinds of companies.
And he's not very good at it. You know, he just has people like Mr. Wonderful, you know, Robert O'Leary endorsing him. So yeah, he's pretty legit. I've checked him out and he knows what he's doing. So if you're in business and you can use some leads, you definitely know to go to theleadking.com, check Russ out because, you know, he's one of the best. And I've been in that space for 6 years. And I can tell when someone's just doing it because they've learned you can have an agency and make some money.
Right.
But I can tell Russ gets results. And that's what we all want. And without results, who cares, you know, what someone claims they do? We need results. So yeah, check him out, theleadking.com. Find him on Facebook. And I know I'd love to chat with you. Anything else, Russ? You got the parting shot, man.
I just want to one last time say thank you for an opportunity to use your platform to get the message out. Guys, if you need help, ask for it. We're here for you. Don't ever get to the point where you're going to take your life because it seems like it's too bad. It's not. We can help you. There's resources out there and we want to help.
Amen. Well, thanks again, brother. We'll continue to have dialogue and see what we can do to, you know, continue to reach those people who really are in a place that need us. So thanks again.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay. Take care.
All right, man. That was good.